All right, well, let's go ahead and open in prayer. Father, we're thankful for the privilege we have of being here in Hebrew class. We pray that you would bless those who are in class and those who will be watching the video. And I pray that you would just help them to learn this language for your glory, that they might use it to study and exegete and preach and teach the Word of God. And we thank you so much for giving us the great privilege of having your Word. And I pray that we would really be passionate about knowing what it says and communicating it to others and letting it affect our lives. And we pray this for Jesus' sake. Amen. Do you have any questions on homework?
I don't know. I didn't correct it yet, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, well, that'll be good. Well, you have 2 weeks till the next class, so hopefully that will be good. Now, today we have lessons 29 through 31, and the next class 32, 33, and those are the last lessons of the semester. So cheers, applause, excitement. I'm expecting, some good Hebrew food to celebrate that. Anyway. But that'll be good. That'll be exciting. And next semester, Lord willing, the book only goes up to 55. So you've actually covered more than half of the book already, which is a blessing, I think. And it's good. It's very exciting. And just keep plugging away at it, and I think you can get it. So if you don't have any questions about homework, let's look at lesson 29. And I would say this part here, before we get to the derived conjugations, the PL and the NIFAL and all those things which you don't know about yet, it can get a little bit crazy, but you do actually run across these categories of verbs, so just more stuff to memorize, and that's just how it is. Hebrew's an easier language than English, I think, so somehow we managed to learn English. Though we had more than a semester of it.
I didn't learn it too good.
I didn't learn no English too good. I'm going to tell you one story here, and then we're going to get into the lesson. But I was in this debate with this guy who, we had a public debate about whether baptismal regeneration is true, and they flew this guy out from Texas to debate on it. And we wouldn't bring a guy teaching this false doctrine to our church, but if they were willing to have us in their church and give us equal time, it was fine. So we did that, and the guy was trying to prove this and that from Greek, and asked if he knew any Greek, and he said that he didn't know Greek, but he knew English pretty good. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah. So anyway, all right. But he could yell. He could scream really well. Like he could scream and make invalid rhetorical things. Okay, lesson 29, first noon verbs. You have two types. The type with a holum over the second root consonant in the imperfect, imperative, infinitive construct, and so on, and ones with a pathak. So you have holum imperfects and pathak imperfects. And the characteristic feature of this class is that in the imperfect, the noon is assimilated to the second root consonant. So the noon gets eaten up, goes away, and what do you see in that, the yippel, tipple, tipple, what do you see inside of those words that indicate that a noon has disappeared?
In the imperfect?
Yeah.
The dagesh?
Yeah, there's a dagesh 14 in the pay. So the noon has disappeared, and the pay ate it up, I guess, and it's inside of its tummy. So that's the evidence that it's gone. And so let's go ahead and actually say the normal imperfect of kathav together, and then that'll help us think about this first noon. So can you do that from memory?
Yep.
Yiktov.
Yiktov.
Yiktov. Tiktov. Tiktavi.
Tiktavi.
Ektov. Yiktavu. Tiktovna. Tiktavu. Tiktovna. Niktov. tov. So, all right. So there, what in those yipols, is there anything that is different, really, besides the noon going away in that from yiktov, tiktov, 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 yaktov?
The pathak is a cholim.
Well, yiktov, is that what you're talking about, the second root consonant?
Oh, are we looking at the imperfect?
Yeah. The yipol, tipple, tipple, tipply, epple,
Yeah.
yippaloo, tipple, na, tippaloo, tipple, na, nipple.
Oh, yeah, that is. Okay, oh, well, yeah.
What else is different besides the noon being assimilated and vanishing? If you need to look back at the lesson that actually has it written out, that's fine. I can't remember what lesson that is. Page 99. So you can compare page 99 with 133.
Well, other than just the noon being gone. Or are we looking at the second one too?
Well, right now we're not looking at that. We're just looking at yippol, tipple, tipple, tipply, epple, yippaloo, tippolna, tippaloo, tippolna, nipple. So the imperfect of the cholim imperfect first noon.
No, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, besides that, it's fine. So it just, the noon gets eaten up, and besides that, it's regular. So, which he actually says the other inflections are otherwise quite regular. So, so good. So that's the type 1. In the perfects, nafal and nasa, the cholim and pathic imperfects, are really pretty normal. That's why when we did the perfects, we didn't divide it up in first noons, because nothing really happened to them. That was unusual. The pathic imperfects also have a shortened imperative form. So if you look at the imperative there, it's just sa. So the noon has just dropped. It's dropped off the face of the earth, and or off. Let's see. It's no longer al panei haaretz, and so you just have sa, sa, sa'i, and sa'u and sana there. If you compare that with, I mean, the normal imperfects are in paragraph 102, page 113. So, normally you just drop the prefix. So, if you look back at 113, like yiktov, the imperative is kathov, yishkav, it's shikav. So here, with these pathic imperfects, you can compare those, and here you see that the noon has just dropped off. The infinitive construct of the pathic imperfects, back at 133, there's two types of it. There's a regular form, like nesoah, and there's a short form with a taith, sa'ath. And that's just how it is. Either of those can be the infinitive construct. One thing that you want to keep in mind here, if you are in the Bible and you run across these, a verb that might be first noon, since the noon might be gone, you have to keep that in mind if you're trying to find the trilateral root. So you look where you might think, like sa'ath. Let's say you saw sa'ath. So you looked under samek, ayin, tau, and there ain't nothing there. Okay? Well, maybe you might want to try noon, samek, ayin then. Okay, so sometimes these noons disappearing can make it a little bit more challenging to find what you need to find. So it's worth keeping in mind. Okay, on the next page, he gives you some more forms there in the columns. These are the common first noon verbs that you will run across. So you have naga, to strike, nata, to plant, and approach, which doesn't have a perfect found in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, but yigash is the perfect form. So some special remarks. Note that yigash is not used in the perfect, though the lexical form would still be noon, gimel, sheen. So the forms of nasa, to raise up, and for some reason, this is just me, but I never remember that it's nasa I rarely remember it when I'm reading in the Bible, even though this is a very common verb. I just forget it. So I don't know why that is. But so nasa is both first noon and third aleph. And the third aleph, remember what it does to the vowel before the aleph?
Lengthens it, doesn't
Good.
it?
Yes, it lengthens it. So when it says the forms of nasa is third aleph, basically you're going to be expecting some lengthening going on here before the aleph. So pathax to cometes. And he gives you those forms. Nathan, to give, has an imperfect with tsere. And nathan is a common enough verb, and it's crazy enough. I guess if you can, okay, we'll show you those forms a little bit. They're a little bit below here, but the noons both are disappearing all over the place. So it really might be worth just memorizing that paradigm, because if you see, like that third column, it gives you the full paradigm of nathan there, and it's yitain, titain, titani, etain. Like titain, how many noons are in there? Well, there's one at the end, but it wouldn't be the most obvious that this is noon, tau, noon. So it is not a bad idea to just memorize the paradigm. And you will find the verb give all over the place in the Bible, so it won't hurt you. Like look at that infinitive construct of nathan, it's taith. So both the noons are assimilated. Or with the suffixes, my giving is titi, titaha, titech, etc. Lakak.
Is the second N swallowed up with and that's why I guess the dagash in the second tau
in titi?
Yeah. No, because actually the one right next to it doesn't.
Well, the infinitive construct, the taith, I think one of them got swallowed up and the other one dropped away. I think that's where you got the taith from. And with the titi, I think it is because they both got swallowed up. But, I mean, I don't know. It's different enough that usually you have the dagash forte because of the first noon getting swallowed up, not the second one. And actually, since it is a common enough verb, if you get in the pattern of just reading the Bible in Hebrew, eventually it won't give you a problem because you'll just remember it. So it's not more unusual than the English to be is our, well, I don't know. Anyway, lakak. Lakak, it means, what does lakak mean?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Take.
Take.
Yeah. Wait, okay. Let me just make sure. I'm just about positive. But I'm also tired today.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, good. Anyway, so lakak acts like it's first noon in the imperfect, even though it's not. So the lamed is dropping away on the front. So you're taking the lamed from lakak, okay? It's disappearing as if it was first noon. In the imperfect, the infinitive constructed with the suffixes. So why? Because it just wants to do that. Some verbs here in E, the doubling of the second root consonant with a noon, getting the dagesh forte, sometimes it goes away when there's a schwa underneath the second root consonant. So there you see yis-u, they will set out, not yis-u. And that can be, you want to just know that that can happen once in a while, because that can make it even more challenging to, because you just see yis-u there, well, there's no doubling in the samek, so okay, well, nothing's been eaten up here, so it can't be first noon. Well, it actually can, because sometimes in that second root consonant, only when it has a schwa underneath it does it do that, all right? And only sometimes with some verbs. So that's more something to remember if you come across it than something that you'd have to do in English to Hebrew. Okay, you don't. Now, if you do it by accident, you're like, oh, yeah, maybe I was intending to just leave the doubling out. Well, I guess that might help you, maybe. But generally, just put it in when you're doing English to Hebrew. But if you run across it, just be aware this could happen. And he gives you here the full paradigms of nasa, nathan, and lakak in the imperfects and in the imperatives. Nasa, well, and so, okay, on the previous, if you want to know what you need to memorize here, on the previous page, 133, you had the imperfect of the cholim imperfects of first noon. So on 133, you had yipol, tipple, tipply, epol, yippolu. See what I'm talking about?
Wait, where are we?
Go to 133, back one page. So there's the paradigm on 133 of the cholim imperfects that are first noon normal, if you can call first noons normal. That's the cholim imperfect first noon, right there, 133. So that's the first paradigm for you. And then he also, and then you flip the page, and then he gives you with nasa, he has yissa, tissa, tissi, essa, yisu, tisana, tisana, nissa. That is the pathak imperfect first noon, normal. And then the next column, yisa, is the third aleph first noon. So that's first noon and third aleph. And what do you notice that's different about that paradigm from yisa?
The lengthened vowel.
Yeah, and pretty much that's it. You have pathaks going to comets in yisa, tissa, tissi, or tissi, essa. Notice in the plurals there, after yisu, you have tissena, tisu, tissena. So you have segals there as well before the aleph. So you can watch for that. Why is it that the second person feminine singular, the third person masculine plural, and the second person masculine plural don't have dagesh in the second root consonant?
I don't know.
I'll give you a hint. Look at E. Right above in the special remarks.
Because it's schwa.
Yep. It's what is in E. So sometimes when there's a schwa under the second root consonant, that doubling goes away. And so you see two examples of that there in these paradigms. So, something to be aware of. While in the yispol tipol on the previous page, page 133, that didn't happen. There you just had the schwa each time. So, and then the last two there, the yitain, titain, titain, that's to give. And what is especially different? The main thing, I'll just tell you, the main thing different there is you have that seire underneath the second root consonant. So, but it might just be worth memorizing just because it's a common enough verb. And then the last one, yikak, that's lakak in the imperfect. Does lakak in the imperfect behave differently than a normal pathak imperfect first noon verb? In other words, yissa. Does yikak behave differently than yissa?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. So basically, if you memorize one of those, and then you just remember that lakak does that, you're fine for that one, and you don't have to memorize that as its own separate thing. Let's read the bottom here. The preposition lamed appears as lamed comets before the infinitives of the stressed first syllable unless the infinitive is in construct with the following noun. So, la ta'ath, la gesheth, la saith, la kachath, la thaith. That's not the most important thing in the lesson to learn, but just a little fact of what happens here. Let's go ahead and read together Nafal's imperfect on page 133, and then we'll do some of the ones on 134. So, here we go. Yipol,
Yipol,
tipol, tipol, tipoli, epol, yipolu, tipolna, tipolu, tipolna, nipol. And let's also do the pathak imperfect on 134. Yissa, tissa, tissa, tis'i, essa, yisu, tissana, tissu, tissana, nissa. Let's do the imperatives too. Sa, si'i, si'u, sana. One thing, if you are saying those out loud, I always try to overdo the length of the ones that have the dogish forte. So I remember, like, I'm going to say tissa, because it has the doubling, longer than tis'u, just so that even if I'm just saying it, I can say it with hopefully in such a way that it'll make me remember that one has the dogish forte and the other one doesn't. So let's do the third aleph too, the yissa, tissa, tissa. Yissa, tissa, tissa, tis'i, essa, yisu, tissana, tis'u, tissana, nissa, sa, si'i, si'u, sena. And let's do to give as well, just because it's common enough, worth memorizing on its own. Yitain, titain, titain, titani, etain, yitanu, titina, titanu, titina, nitain. Tain, tani, tanu, taina. And I'm not going to do the lakak because it's the same as nasa. So, boy, some of these paradigms would be good to have on a pop quiz, I think. That'd be kind of fun. Fun for me, I guess. Okay, let's look at the vocabulary here. Any questions about that first noon?
I'll get it.
You'll get it. Yeah, it's Lambden gives you all the different categories. He like, for example, some other Hebrew textbooks by this time would already have you in the derived conjugations, the PL and the NIFAL, but they wouldn't have taught you all these different ones in the Cal. I think it's actually a strength of this, because as you get later in the book, you'll be used to some of these, and instead of every third verb you come across being an exception that you don't know, you'll actually know why it's doing what it's doing. So it's actually, I think it's good that he does it this way, because this is just how the language works, so you might as well tell the students about it. All right, vocab. Mugurim, your residence, the place where you sojourn. And so you can refer to your Beith as your Mugurim. And that's a way to use the word real life. Kuthoneth is a tunic, or kutoneth. And again, that's also a word, especially in winter. It's a good word to use when you put your coat on, I guess. It's not technically a tunic, but close enough.
What's the difference between the...
They mean the same. No difference. Just two different spellings. No difference at all. Nether is a vow, or nether. So you make a vow, it's a nether. So you want to never break your vow. The only problem with trying to remember it that way is then you might think it's a Beith, like never. Because if you're punning on never, but it's actually nether, so... Unless maybe you can remember, if you don't like the cold, you can think about going to the Netherlands, and you can vow to never go there, because it can get pretty cold in the winter. Yeah, that might not work that well either. Okay, Toledoth. This is in Genesis. These are the generations. He says history, genealogy, which I guess is fine, but generation. So that's Toledoth. That's that word that divides up the book of Genesis into 10 sections. So we're going to see that in Genesis 2, 4, and following. Some verbs. Yigash, he gives you, to approach, usually with L. That's the imperfect. The lexical form is nagash, so even though nagash doesn't show up, it might be worth memorizing it as nagash and just remembering there is no perfect in the Bible for that. Nather, to vow. That looks like a noun you just learned, or we just talked about, eh? Nether. Oh, nether, nathar. Whoa, what do you know? So there's the noun and the verb. Ga'er is to rebuke, something that should be happening in a good church when people sin. Sane is to hate. Have. This is an imperative that only appears in that form. Like, come now, let's build us a tower that will get to heaven. That's have. So it just has this form. Have is the masculine singular. Hava, feminine singular. Havi, havu. So come now, let us do whatever. Let us build the walls of Jerusalem.
So that's what it means completely? Come now, let us?
Well, I wish that you had it in a sentence here. You could just translate it like come now, something like that, and you'd be okay. Those are alternative translations. He's saying give, come now, or let's are three different ways to translate it.
I didn't see a comma, so I didn't realize that's what he was doing.
Yeah, it wasn't super clear. There you have nasa, to raise, lift up, or carry. Very common verb in the Old Testament. Sa'ir is small or young. And then you have the numeral 2, shenayim and shetayim. I'm trying to remember, did we talk about duals yet?
Yes.
Yeah, so notice, of course, the number 2 has a dual form, which kind of makes sense. If it didn't, that'd be kind of bad. So it does have a dual, which makes sense, the number 2. A little bit more information about the number 2. The absolute form of the number 2 may stand before or after the noun it modifies, and the noun it modifies is plural, not dual. So it's shenayim anashim, 2 men, or anashim shenayim. So in other words, the noun it modifies isn't dual, just plural, but the numeral is dual. Shetayim nashim, 2 women. The construct is only used before the noun, which makes sense. You never really have a construct form after what it modifies. So shetay nashim, shenay anashim. 2 of women, but really it's just still 2 women, 2 men. Then you have some proper names, which are good to know, but much less likely to be asked about on vocabulary, because they're just people's names, and you can usually figure it out. Any questions? Lesson 29?
I don't think so.
All right, well, let's go to 30. If you thought the first noons were bad, you will not think they're as bad when you look at the first yods. Because the first yods are more crazy than the first noons. All right. First yod verbs. Here, like in first noons, there are 2 distinct types, depending on the stem vowel. So you have tsere imperfects and pathic imperfects. Notice in the instance he gives here that tsere imperfect in the perfect has a pathic, and the pathic imperfect in the perfect has a tsere. You see on yashav and yashain? So that could be kind of confusing. But those are the types on the imperfect, though, not the perfect. So yashav, the imperfect is yeshav, imperative is shave, infinitive construct sheveth, with the suffixes shivti, shivtecha, etc. And he does give you some full paradigms a little bit later, so I'm going to reserve comments on full paradigms for now. Here, just point these things out. So the pathic imperfects, yashain in the perfect, imperfect yishan, imperative yashan, infinitive construct yashon, with suffixes yashni and so on. So dwelling and sleeping. Both of things which also happen very commonly in the Bible. The ones that have the tsere imperfects have tsere in the preformative, that's the part before the trilateral root, and they have short imperative and infinitive stems. So in the imperative and the infinitives, the yod just drops off. So shave, where did the yod go? It vanished away. Same with the infinitive construct. So just like first, these again can be ones. I mean, actually, it's even though they're kind of a little bit complicated now, really, it's still good to learn them because you see some form in the Bible, and you don't see 3 root consonants really. You just see an ending or a suffix or whatever. Well, it could be first noon, could be first yod. And so you could look under yod and the 2 consonants you see, or noon and the first 2 consonants you see. And some of these verbs are very common, so once you look them up a few times, you remember that what it is, and it'll be okay. So yeah, that's another just thing to be aware of, that these yods can disappear. So exactly like yashav, to dwell, is yalath, to bear, like to bear children, and yarath, to descend. So you have yalath, yelath, lath, letheth, lith, t, yarath, yerath, rath, retheth, rith, t. He tells you that yadah, to know, belongs to the group of the tsere imperfects, not the pathic imperfects. So that's pretty wild, eh? It has a pathic, but it's really a tsere imperfect. It has a pathic, though, even though it's a tsere imperfect, because of the final root guttural. So the guttural makes it so that it's a pathic. You say, well, if it has a pathic, why is it a tsere imperfect? Because the pathic imperfects don't get shortened this way. Like if you look at the yashav and the yashain up on top, notice in the, like in the imperative, for example, you actually have three consonants there in the imperative with the pathak imperfect, but not with the tsere imperative. You know, you have shave and yashain. Infinitive construct, the yod goes away with the tsere imperfect, sheveth. It's still there with the pathak imperfect, yishon. So with yada, you have the yod disappearing, and so that shows it's a tsere imperfect, even though it has a pathak. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, I tell you, this is kind of crazy stuff. And you do want to learn it, though it's not quite as essential as like memorizing the sound trilateral root, but this is good. It's good it's in here, you want to learn it. But if you forget a minor detail of the first yod, tsere imperfect, it'll just add a little bit of time to your homework and not like prevent you from being able to go on in Hebrew ever. While, you know, if you don't know kathav and the sound trilateral root, you're toast, man. So, you know, you want to learn it. If you forget something, you can come back to the lesson and look at it. But it's good to know, but you're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna die from that. Hopefully. So yada has a pathak, but it's really a tsere imperfect. Yatzah is another tsere imperfect, but it's a little bit different because it's third aleph, and third aleph means what's going to happen for the aleph.
What's going to happen to the aleph?
Before the aleph. What happens to the vowel before the aleph?
It's lengthened.
Good. Lengthened vowel again. Yeah. And that's what happens with go forth.
So it's supposed to be a pathak, but it's lengthened to a tsere.
Well, this is a tsere imperfect. Well, okay, in the perfect, yeah. So in the perfect form, instead of yashav, you have yatzah. So there you have the pathak to the comments. The imperfects and the forms that he gives you, the imperfects and the imperatives, those forms are the same. If you look at the infinitive construct, for example, though, sheveth, and here you have tseith. So there you have the segol lengthened to tsere. And you also have a longer vowel before the infinitive construct with the suffixes. So shiv t versus say the. So hirek to sere. So longer vowel. If you just remember that you have a longer vowel, it will help you. Halak, to walk or go. This is an extremely common verb. And halak, even though it doesn't have a first yod, acts like it's a sere imperfect first yod. So go figure. So the hey drops off in the imperfects, those other ones. So these verbs are acting crazy, but these are some of the most common verbs in the Old Testament. I mean, just think about how often people are going somewhere. They go lots of places in the Bible. So that's the tsere imperfect. That whole page is tsere imperfect. Top of the next page is pathak imperfect, like yashain. And some examples of that are yarash, to inherit, ya'atz, advise, ya'katz, to wake up, and ya'vesh, to dry up. And notice here in the imperfects, you actually still have the two yods. One of the yods doesn't disappear or get assimilated or something. They're both present. And I'm sure you know, what does it mean where there's a line in no form?
It's not in the Bible.
Yeah, it's not in the Bible. Yeah. So the third aleph verb yaresh also acts like a pathak imperfect, even though because it's third aleph, you don't have a pathak, you have the lengthened vowel. I believe, maybe it's just order, but I believe he gives you the tsere imperfects first because they're more common. You do run across these pathak imperfect verbs, but going and knowing are more common than drying up in the Bible. fear is probably the most common of those ones in that second group. There he also says the noun yer-ah is normally used in the infinitive construct instead of yero. And he says the imperatives and infinitive construct of this group are poorly tested in biblical Hebrew and show the same mixture of the two possible types which we encountered with verbs first noon. So what he means by that is the imperative infinitive constructs sometimes act like the Holem imperfects and the pathing imperfects on page 133. So sometimes the first root consonant drops off. Like, just go back to 133 for just a second. Like if you look at the imperative of nafal and nasa, notice the noon drops away in the the very first thing on 133. See where I am? Mm-hmm. So the imperative, sometimes the noon goes away, sometimes it doesn't. And what he's saying is that that can happen here with the first yods too. In other words, both the noons and the yods like to go away. So it's just how it is. Yakol is to be able. That's also a common verb. This one has a shurek in the imperfect. Ukal, tukal, tukali, ukal. So that's just unusual. Well, in the class of first yod, and those classes to be treated in the following lessons, this is important, this little information here. Frequently, there's a difference in the imperfect form used with wow conversive. What's a wow conversive?
When it's it converts the imperfect to perfect or vice versa.
Good, yeah, flips it. So when you have the wow conversive on the imperfect form, which would have a perfect type sense, continuing a sequence, frequently there's a difference in the imperfect form, and that's important to know. This is particularly in the third person singular masculine and feminine, the second person masculine singular, and the first person plural. Well, what often happens here? Well, the accent is retracted, goes backwards to an open, and he puts that in italics, preformative syllable. In other words, it goes before the trilateral root to the stuff before that. And sere in the stem is replaced by segol in the actual trilateral root, when he says in the stem. A similar instance was met with yomer versus wayomer. So there the form on its own was yomer, but with the wow conversive, the pathak changed to segol, and the accent went back to the prefix, the preformative. So from yomer to wayomer. Then he says there are, however, inconsistencies. So, Now, he says the change is regular for the tsere imperfects other than ye tse. So, there he has wayeshev. What form is that? I'll just tell you what the form is. If you look back, that's a third masculine singular of yashav in the imperfect. So if you look back on page 138, the normal form is yeshev. Can you see it right there? So normally it's yeshev, or yeshev, accent on the ultima, the final syllable. Here, because of the wow conversive, the accent goes to the preformative, wayeshev. And because of that, the tsere goes to segol. It gets shortened. So wayeshev from instead of yeshev. So it's wateshev and waneshev for the 2ms and the first person plural form. And the same thing happens with the wow conversive in those other ones, yalav, yarav. So you have wateleth, wayereth, and wayelek. But yatsat is different. Yatsat, it keeps the longer vowel underneath the second root consonant. So wayetse, watetse, or rather, that doesn't even have the accent moving back. So it's wayetse, watetse, wanetse. Now, in the actual Hebrew Bible, the accent will also be over the accented syllable, so that helps too, for almost all the accents of the ones that are, where it was always the end of the word, the beginning of the word. So then it says, it is not found with the Pathak imperfects other than ye-that. Now, remember, on the previous page, you said ya-that isn't a Pathak imperfect at all. It's a tsere imperfect. Okay, remember we said that on page 138, the verb yada belongs to the tsere imperfect group, even though it has a pathak?
Yep.
So here he says the pathak imperfects don't have this change that he talked about, but he says other than yada. But remember, yada isn't really a pathak imperfect anyway. So it makes sense that yada, because it's really a tsere imperfect, does what the tsere imperfects do with a vowel conversive. So the pathak imperfects, nothing happens to them. This change doesn't happen. You just have wa yi rash, wa yi shan, wa yi cats, and so on. And remember, if you're one, I think you probably remember this, but remember the vowel conversive is wow, pathak plus doubling. So that's why you have that doggish forte at the beginning of all those. Several verbs have imperfects formed in the analogy of roots first noon. So yatser, yatsak, and yatsath act as if they were first noon in the imperfect. So that's nice. But they also can, with a vowel conversive, act as if they are pathak imperfect first yods. So he says irregularly wa yitzer, wa yitzek. Now the good news is fashioning and pouring aren't as common as walking or knowing. So in the ideal world, you're going to remember that those three verbs do that. But reality is probably you're going to look back and if you run across it and say, oh, okay. And then do what needs to be done to remember that. Any questions about this? Or just a comment that it's kind of crazy?
I think I remember that isn't the wow supposed to have an odd thing when it's connected with a yod? Isn't it we? Or no, that's the yod shawa, right? Yeah,
with the yod shawa, it can change from a consonant yod to a hirek yod. Okay. Vowel, yeah. That isn't going to help you too much with stuff right here necessarily, but it's good you remember that. That does happen in different places in the Bible.
I was thinking this looked weird, but
yeah, this is just weird because of what he's describing here. And here there isn't. It's going to be the wow pathak plus doubling for the. Okay. But yeah, it's good you remember that. Tov mode. Given below are the full paradigms of the most frequent types of the class first yod. So the first column there is yashav, to dwell, very common. Second one is halak, to walk, which acts as first yod even though it's not. You have yetze, go forth, yada, to know, and yirash, so to inherit. The first four are all tsere imperfect types, and that last one is the pathak imperfect type. The reason you get all four is because yeshev is the actual standard tsere imperfect type. So if you're really only going to memorize one, you probably wouldn't hurt you to just do that one because that's a standard one. Halak is next because, and it's listed because it's different because the hey goes away. So that's why it's there, because it's a first yod without a yod. That's first. Yatsa is there because it's third aleph, as well as first yod. And Yada is there because the third guttural makes it so that even though it's a Tsere imperfect, it has the pathak. And then the Yirash is there because that's the other type of first yod. And I think it is significant that he gives you, again, 4 of the 5 are the Tsere imperfects because those are the more common verbs. So let's go ahead and say these here. Ye shave,
Te
shave, te shave, te shave, te shavi, a shave, ye shavu, te shavna, te shavu, te shavna, ne shave, shave, shavi, shavu, shavna. So, if you command an Orthodox Jew to shave, you say to him, shave, what are you telling him to do?
Sit or dwell.
You're telling him to sit or dwell. So he can keep his beard. Maybe that's why they have beards, because even if you tell them to shave, they just sit down, you know? I don't know. All right, then you have halak here. Ye lake, te lake, te lake, te laki, a lake, ye laku, te lakna, te laku, te lakna, ne lake, lake, laki, laku, lakna. So a lake is commanding somebody to walk, not a pool of water that you are around. If you have your own system for this, great. It would be a good idea, just like vocabulary words you can put on cards or whatever, to put paradigms to memorize on cards. Hopefully lesson 30 have something to do with memorize paradigms. But you put them on cards and memorize the paradigm the way you would vocabulary. And actually, any one of these paradigms is more important than any singular vocabulary word because, you know, it covers a whole bunch of stuff. So tell me about the halak there. How does the imperfect of halak differ from the imperfect of yashav? In the imperfect or the infinitives?
Wait, halak? How is that different from
Yashav.
yashav?
Yeah.
Well, it's a hay.
Well, yeah. Obviously, the hay goes away. So, but in terms of acting like a first yod, so we remember that halak acts like first yod. Once we remember that, is there anything that's different in the paradigms here of the imperfect of halak and of yashav?
No, I don't think so.
No, there's not. So that's actually good. So basically, if you just remember that halak acts like an imperfect, in the first yod of the imperfect, you've got halak. So you can take your pick with memorizing one of those. Those are exactly the same. The yetze, how does that third aleph influence things? What's different about that one?
It makes the pathak seire.
Where?
Is that before the aleph?
Give me an example here. Yetze, tetze. I mean, those are the same as. Those are exactly the same as yeshav, teshav, teshav, teshavi. So those are just normal first yod situations.
Okay. Oh, the segal here.
Yeah, tell me the forms. Say the forms that are different.
Tetsena.
Good. Tetsena. Anything else?
Sa'ena.
Good. Sa'ena, the feminine plural imperative. And how often do you have feminine plural imperatives in the Bible? Not very often. Because the men just tell their wives. Well, I guess they did have polygamy, so they could tell their wives what to do. which is unfortunate. But yeah, so that's actually very similar too. Except for those forms, it is the same. And hopefully it's starting to be familiar to you before quiescent alepphs, silent alepphs, that you have the segol frequently in front of them. That happens a lot. Or if it isn't, just put that in your memory bank. Okay, let's say yada, the fourth one here. Yeda.
Okay.
Yeda. Teda. Teda. Teda-e. Ada. Yeda-u. Tedana. Teda-u. Tedana. Nada. Da. Da-e. Da-u. Dana. So what's different for yeda versus yeshave?
The pathic.
Good. The pathic under the second root consonant. Anything else?
The guttural has a shawa in it.
Where?
Tay dad and
Yeah, what's going on with that? How can a guttural have a schwa? Is it a vocal schwa or silent schwa?
silent.
Silent schwa. That's why I can do it. That is why.
So why do they need it? Since
Well, because every
and
consonant
silent
has a
too.
vowel underneath it. So. But it's a closed syllable, so it doesn't get pronounced. So anything else different besides the pathax instead of the tseres under the second root consonant?
No, that's about it.
Nope, that's it. So actually, even here, that's really not too bad. So those four paradigms are very similar to each other. So it's not like four entire different paradigms. It's basically one with a few changes. So that's good. Less horrifying. Still a little bit horrifying, but not as horrifying. Let's say the pathac imperfect class, the ye-rash. Ye-rash, T-rash, T-rash, T-rashi, E-rash, Ye-rashu, T-rashna, T-rashu, T-rashna, Ni-rash, Rash, Rashi, Rashu, Rashna. Good. And it would be wise to memorize at least the standard Seire imperfect and the pathic imperfect paradigm. Just because then you have the standard ones. Like if you forget that the two classes exist, that would be a problem for sure. And getting it down sooner will help you because it will help you recognize words with consonants or the vowels that are letters that are disappearing and save you time looking through the lexicon. Okay, here's vocabulary before we take a break. Shalom, peace, a state of wholeness. Note the idiom, sha'al lish shalom la, to ask the peace for. That's how it says to inquire about the health of. It's, ask about the peace of, but that is how they say it. Sha'al lish shalom la. Amek is a valley or a lowland. Baal, it means Lord, Master, Owner, or it means husband as well, because the husband is the head of the home. So the pagan deity Baal, his name means Lord. On occasion, the true God is also called Baal, in terms of not that he's the god Baal, obviously, but he is a Lord, the truly Lord, in the way that this idol is not. And it can be used as, he says in the sense of one invested with and down with Baal Chalomoth, Lord of dreams. It says dreamer. Baalei Chaparashim, the lords of the horsemen, the people who make a living as horsemen. And then he says it's the proper name of the Canaanite deity Baal, and occasionally applied to the true God. So that's Baal. I think in Hosea, they transliterate the usual, no more call me Baali, but Ishi. You no more call me, because they're worshiping the idol. There's like this pun on Baal versus husband. You know what I'm talking about? Does it do it in English? Or am I just used to thinking about the Hebrew in Hosea?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay. Well, it might be, it's there in Hosea somewhere. Okay, adjectives. Rachok, distant or far. You can think sometimes your vocabulary is that way. Distant or far from me. Meirachok, at a distance from afar. Karov is near or close to. And if you add the two, you put an L. So karov L, close to. The verb is karav, to be near or draw near, or approach. It's approach when it gets an L, a lamed, or beth. Yashen is to sleep. It's what he gives his beloved. He gives his beloved sleep. Sha'al is to ask, inquire, or request a thing. Ana is to answer. So you ask, sha'al, and somebody answers, ana. To testify against somebody's ana plus beth. That would be to testify or answer against. Terem is before, and but terem, before or not yet, usually followed by the imperfect. So terem yishka, before, in Hebrew, before he will lay down, but maybe it just always has the imperfect. Terem does. Few names: Yisrael, Israel; Jacob, the person Jacob, or the name of the people of Israel; and Yosef is Joseph. Any questions on lesson 30?
No.
Yeah, there's some stuff to learn in there, but you can do it. Just takes a little work. I think there's nothing to tell you about the 29 and 30 that I need to tell you right now, either from the answer key either. All right, well, let's take a break. I think that is well-deserved at this point. Okay, third hey verbs, imperfects here. Imperatives, infinitive constructs. So this class of verbs is quite uniform in its inflection. Everybody cheers. Yay! The imperfect ends in segolhe, except where this is replaced by an inflectional ending. In other words, it goes away. It gets dropped, and you stick the endings on. The imperative ends in a, tserehe, in the infinitive construct, an oath. Below are the paradigms of bana, which may be taken as a norm of this class. So bana would be the one to memorize here, because that's the norm. So to build. And of course, there are other verbs that have peculiarities in addition to being third hey. Allah is third hey and first guttural. So Allah is first guttural as well as third hey. Higa is also first guttural, but a little bit different with its preformative vowel. Nata is third hey and first noon. And the slightly irregular verb haya, to be. And obviously to be is so common that it would be worth memorizing as its own paradigm. It's like the verb is in English. I mean, this, you're going to see it 25 bazillion times, approximately. So let's go ahead and say these ones, starting with to build. Yivne, tivne, tivne, tivni, evne, yivnu, tivnena, tivnu, tivnena, nivne, bene, beni, benu, benena, benoth. And let's do ascend. Ya'ala, ta'ala, ta'ala, ta'ali, a'ala, ya'alu, ta'alena, ta'alu, ta'alena, na'ala, ale, ali, alu, alena, aloth. And as we meditate, yahga, tahga, tahga, tahgi, ahga, yagu, tahgena, tahgu, tahgena, nahga, hagay, hagi, hagu, hagena, hagoth. Hey, by the way, how can the hey have a schwa underneath it in the...
Because it's silent.
Good, silent schwa. And let's do nata here, extend. Yeta, tita, tita, titi, eta, yitu, titena, titu, titena, nita, nite, niti, nitu, nitena, nitoth. Yeah, ti, yeah, ti, ye, yeah, ye, ti, yena, ti, ye, excuse me. I'm going to start at the plurals again. Ye, what am I saying, ye? Ye, you, ti, yena, ti, you, ti, yena, ni, yeah, heye, hayi, hayu, heyoth. That would be a nice pop quiz question too, maybe, to be. Okay, so to build is your standard third hey. How is the first guttural of ya'aleh, how does that change things from the yivneh, the to build? Let me ask first, does it change anything on the back of the word, on the suffixes, the end part of the word?
No, those are all the same.
Those are all the same. So how about the front? What goes on the front here?
Just the vowels in the first two, actually, pretty much.
Okay, so what's the difference about the vowel?
The pathak.
Good. So the preformative has pathak instead of hirek. And of course, underneath the first root consonant, are there differences?
Well, they're reduced shawas.
Yeah, basically you have the hatef pathaks instead of schwa, but really hatef pathak is basically the same thing as a schwa except under a guttural, so really that's not different. Of course, why does the first person have hatef segol instead of a hatef pathak? E'ele.
I think it has something to do with the segol in the beginning.
Good, yeah. The segol in the preformative, so it gets followed by hatef segol. So besides that, those pathaks coming in, really, it's the same. So that's good. It's not too bad. So if you remember that, you don't need to memorize it as a separate one, if you remember. And you can just memorize to build. Meditate. What's different on to meditate versus versus Allah? Because this is also a first guttural.
It seems to be just the sigil under the first root consonant.
You mean the preformative, right?
Preformative, yeah.
Yeah, so the first root consonant's the hey. Yeah, so it's the segol underneath the first, the preformative is the only thing that's really to pay attention to. Notice you don't have those segols in the imperative forms. The imperative forms are identical to Allah. And so is the infinitive construct. Extend third hey and first noon. So what does that do? Compare that to bana. Tell me about the end first. Is the back part the same as bana?
No, the noon is gone.
The noon is gone. Yeah, and I'm considering that like the front of the word. So there are changes in the front of the word. The noon disappearing is significant, obviously. How does that affect things?
Well, it makes it different.
Is the vowel on the preformative any different?
Yes. Well, no, not from bana.
No, the vowel in the preformative is the same. It still has the hirek, just like yivna. It's basically like that first root consonant just goes away. And if you look on the vowels on the second root consonant of yivna and yita, are they different?
No.
No. So it's kind of, you have the same preformative, same second root consonant onwards, you just have the dagesh forte and the noon gone. So it's actually less different than it looks. It looks different because there's fewer letters there, fewer consonants. To be. Does to be differ from to build in the imperfect forms?
No.
So he said it's slightly irregular. So why does he even put it out if it's exactly the same there as to build?
I don't know.
Are the imperative forms the same?
Yep. Well, no, not really. They have other than the first one here, it has a sigil.
Yeah, so the imperatives and the infinitive construct are slightly different. You have this hatef sigil underneath for the masculine singular imperative. The masculine plural and the feminine singular and the masculine plural imperatives, you have hatef pathax because of the hey, the guttural, and then in infinitive construct you have the hatef sigil. So that's why he says it is slightly irregular, but it's very similar to build. So you could either just memorize to build and remember the difference of haya, or you could just memorize haya just because it's going to be so common that it might not hurt you to just do that anyway. Because honestly, you're going to run across to be more than any other third hey verb because it's so common. But to build is the standard. Questions about any of those? No, it's another thing to learn.
Just another thing to memorize.
Yep, pretty much. Yep, a lot of memorizing, first year Hebrew. But, oh well. God gave us brains to use them. Now, 144, it says the verb haya, or chaya, to live, is inflected like haya, to be, except that the infinitive consonant is vocalized with hatef pathak in the first syllable, chayoth. So to live, which is also another extremely common verb, is just like haya, except what he said there. So haya, haya. So two, you memorize the paradigm of haya, you basically have two very common verbs down, haya and chaya. You have the verbs bake, afa, and ava, to be willing. Those have imperfects yofe and yove, first aleph patterning in conjunction with third hey. So they act like first aleph imperfects, which we learned back somewhere here a few lessons ago, and then third hey. Do you remember the first aleph imperfects? They're in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at that and you think what he's talking about, just go back and look at the lesson with the first aleph, and you'll whatever lesson that was. First guttural. He gives you, on page 115, you have first aleph. I don't know if that's the only place he talks about it. Oh, here we are, page 119, 115. Oh, that's okay. Page 119. So 119, you have the first alephs. And notice he actually talks about afa and ava, because those are third hey. So notice with the first aleph, you have this quiescence, yocal, tocal, tocal. The aleph is just quiescent, and you have the cholim with the preformative. And so over here, with the third hey, he tells you they lack like first alephs, but they have third hey stuff at the back. So the front of it is first aleph. It does this cholim preformative, quiescent aleph. And the back of it does the third hey thing. So that would be the main thing to catch this lesson here. Now he says here there's a distinct form for the jussive in the singular. What's a jussive?
It is third person singular, imperfect.
It's a third person imperative. Yeah, it's like a third person indirect imperative. You translate let us or let him, whatever. Let us would be the first person cohortative. It says it may be thought, so the jussive in the third hays have a distinct form. The hay part in the back ends up dropping off. It may be thought of as a shortened or apocryphated form. Remember the word apocryphated because we're probably going to use it. So apocryphated means shortened form. Why say shortened when you'd say apocryphated, you know? If you were talking about the French Revolution, you got shortened if you got decapitated. But here you're getting apocryphated instead. It's probably better than getting decapitated. So the shortened or apocryphated form of the imperfect without the final e. So the e goes away. And as a result, you have a secondary vowel to resolve the resultant final consonant cluster. Here, for reference, is a list of the most important third hey verbs with their attested short forms. Notice this for reference. He's not expecting you to memorize this whole list here. So that's good. But you might have to turn back to this page on different occasions. So, there, notice he gives you the perfects, the imperfects. Notice the jussive forms, like on to build, yiven. So the e on the back is dropped off, and you just have this different vowel that it kind of comes in under the baith. And if you could see all of those, third masculine singular, and then the third feminine singular, second masculine singular, and the first common singular, first common plural jussives, they are all shortened. The e is dropping off, and you have other stuff that comes in as a result. I'll let you look that over for a second. Tell me if you have any questions about the general pattern, at least, of how it drops off. And then you have this shortened form, apocryphated form. No questions in general?
I don't think so.
Yeah, look the chart over if you haven't already, and just kind of see what it's doing. Again, he's not expecting you to memorize this chart here. On the top of page 145, it says in Nameless it gives you be and live. What are those? Tell me what those columns are, those 6 columns. What forms those represent?
I assume they're the same as the previous page, aren't they?
They are, which means they are?
Joseph.
Well, what's the first one? Haya is what?
Perfect.
Perfect third masculine singular. Yehya is what?
Imperfect third masculine singular.
Good. Yehi?
Would be 3ms, Joseph.
Good, yeah. Yehi or, let there be light. Tehi?
It would be third feminine singular or second masculine.
Good. Ahi?
He is first common singular.
Yeah, it's the first, common singular, first common plural. Or, which is, well, it's the cohortative form. The first person indirect imperative. Now, jussives aren't super common, like so incredibly common as that they would need to be introduced in lesson 31. But the important thing with these forms, it isn't good to know that they're jussives, because that has come up, in Genesis 1 even, Yehi or, let there be light. But these short forms are what you have, are used regularly with wow conversive in past narrative sequences. So he mentions that 145. That's the important thing about these forms. So in other words, these forms, these jussive forms, are what you see when you have the wow conversive on imperfect. You get this shortened form. That's why these are important. So there he gives you waya'as, and he made the shortened form of asa. Watevek, and she wept. Shortened form of third feminine singular. Jussive, or just shortened here, imperative, imperfect form.
So it wouldn't be jussive with the wow on it?
It would, that would just be normal imperfect, yeah. The normal imperfect form gets shortened like this with a wow conversive.
Okay.
I guess you say, well, what if it's, how do you know it's not adjussive? I don't think that happens very often, that you have wow conversive. I'm not saying it never happens. I haven't thought about it that much, but this is these are regular imperfects. The regular imperfect form, that when it's third hey, and notice you have a lot of common third hey verbs here. So when these third hey verbs come up in the Bible and there's a wow conversive on them, you have these shortened forms, even though they're imperfects, not jussives. Like wa yahi, and it was. You're going to see that all over the place. And it came to pass, this happened. The short forms of the third or second persons are nearly always used with the wow conversive. In the first person, you can either have the normal or the short form of the imperfect. So, wa evka or wa avk, and I wept, which is what you might be thinking as you look at all these forms. But either of those could be there with when the wow conversive is there. Note the sequence form wa yar, and he saw, which differs from the jussive yera. That's just one form for that one thing. There are no cohortatives in comets hey for verbs third hey, so that's good to know. So no first person cohortatives for third hey. And so actually, like the first common singular, the first common plural, those forms there, which I should have been clear on this a few minutes ago, those ones in that chart on 144, those shortened forms will only appear as shortened imperfect forms because there is no cohortative. Those don't actually come up as cohortatives. It's just wow conversive plus shortened form. And the stem of the infinitive construct doesn't change with the pronominal suffixes, so that's kind of nice. The infinitive construct is just what it is, and you stick on an e, echa, ek, o, a, etc. So, very exciting. Now, this shortened form, again, is for third hey, not for all the other types of wow conversives on words, but it does come up a lot. Any questions about how that works?
I don't know. I'll just have to go slower.
Yeah, that's understandable. I would say 20, like these 3 lessons, all 3 of them are kind of a doozy.
Yeah, altogether. After the first 2, I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, they're all kind of a doozy. You just have to go back over it, and you'll. I think you'll get it. If you forget one minor detail in one of these, you can survive too. But it is there. You should do your best learning it. You can ask me questions, go over the homework, and I think you'll get what you need to get. But I would memorize to build, and it would probably be wise to memorize to be as well. And you might just remember the ascend, meditate, extend. So basically, the first thing you need to learn, just memorize a third hey, one of those. And this, remember there's a shortened form. You don't need to try to memorize that whole chart at 144. That'd be crazy. Just remember that this shortened form comes. And it's not that hard to identify, because if there's a wow conversive and this thing that's short, okay, maybe this is a third hey. Maybe the hey dropped off the end. Okay, vocabulary. Bore. Hopefully that's not what this class is. It's a pit or a cistern, and some looks like they would bury people there, so it can be used for the grave as well. Do not let my soul go down into the pit. Rhea is a friend or a companion. So you can say that to your friends. Rhea, plural construct, friends of whoever. Singular or third masculine suffix, Rheahu. So, simla is an outer garment or cloak. Shafak is the pour out or shed blood. And usually when somebody's blood was shed, there was actual blood getting poured out too. Like, you don't really see shedding of blood used, at least where you can see the actual killing take place for somebody getting suffocated. Usually there's actual blood that's getting poured out when blood is being shed. I'm not saying necessarily if it says that the Assyrians shed much blood, that maybe some kind of death where there wasn't literal blood being poured out was excluded 100% for sure, but generally bloodshed being poured out, there was actual blood pouring out.
Well, in the same sense, if the Assyrians are killing people, they're not going to take time to choke somebody when they have a sword in their hand.
Probably not, yeah. I mean, maybe if you're in battle, you might choke somebody. But generally, if the Assyrians are going around killing people, they are hacking them up. Even ripping up the women with child, which incredibly barbaric. So now we just abort them and let the woman live. Just still barbaric. Shafak, pour shed blood. Tafas, to seize or grab. Nata, to extend or pitch a tent. I guess because the tent, you would spread it out a little bit. Or to turn aside. So that's kind of interesting. Baka, to weep or mourn. The valley of Baka, he makes a well. The valley of weeping. Shachat is to slaughter, usually of animals. Ata, now, and so then. Rake, empty, worthless, or idle. So the rake, the Ish rake does not pick up his rake and work. He just lies there. Dothan is a city, and Reuven is Reuben, firstborn son of Jacob. An idiom here. A plural verb followed by ish and an appropriate singular suffix is to be taken distributively or reciprocally. Halaku ish el beitho. So their plural verb, walked or went, man, singular, el beitho. So he says each man went to his house. So ish is singular, the verb is plural, so each particular man went to his own house. Wayomaru ish el reyehu. Wow conversive on Amar in the plural, and they said, a man to his neighbor. That's what he just mentioned up above. Re'ah is friend or friend, companion. Each man said to his friend, his companion. So there, again, each is singular. The verb is plural. It's distributive. Each particular man is talking to his friend or companion. The imperative of halak, he says, is often used before another imperative, and he says the sense is difficult to translate, but if you're used to the King James, you're more used to it than maybe a modernist reading Lambden's textbook who is used to more dynamic equivalence. So here, look at the example here. He says you can often omit it for the translation. I think you're better not omitting it, but translating it because God put it in there. So, laku wenacharga otho. Laku is the imperative halak, so come and we will kill him. So come on, let's kill him, he says. An imperative, especially, so it's like in the King James, come now. That type of thing is what he's talking about. The imperative of halak, followed by the appropriate second verb. Another imperative or cohortative. So there are laku, come, imperative, wenat, harga, cohortative, let us kill otho, him. An imperative, especially of halak, in other words, a motion, may be followed by the dative pronoun. He says no translation of that in English. Well, King James, go or get thee. So lake, laka. There you have an imperative of go, and then you have laka, lamed with a suffix, echa. This is like go or get thee, is how the King James often translates the halak here. So just keep that in mind. I think, remember that when you come across it, I think you'll see what you're supposed to do, and it won't be too bad. Okay, so the main things here is memorize standard third Hay paradigm. Remember the shortened form thing. That's the basic thing to do. Questions on lesson 31?
No, not this week.
Yeah. 29 to 31 is a bear. And I remember just from teaching it before, students are often like, when we do lesson 29 through 31, but oh well. Okay, well, we may have time to get to some homework, but I want us to start translating Bereshith, so we will get ready to do that at this time. Okay, so we're going to start here in Genesis 1, and I rather suspect that for most students who are taking this class, the exegesis of Scripture is actually the reason you're doing it, not just because you like to memorize paradigms of third Hay verbs. I guess that's fine, but when I was a kid, I memorized like baseball cards and things and digits of pi, and it just wasn't. Did you do digits of pi?
No.
Do you know anybody who did?
No.
You did? Oh man, how many digits of pi did you learn?
I don't remember.
You remember?
That was a long time.
Yeah, so somebody even gave me this T-shirt with the first 100 digits of pi.
Did you know the first 100 digits?
I didn't. I knew a bunch of them. And there was I remember this kid. He was kind of weird, but he memorized this Big Mac song about the Big Mac with extra cheese and.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you do that too? Oh man. Well, anyway, but this is more useful because this is God's word than memorizing the Big Mac song to help the marketing of unhealthy food. So it would be good. You should have your translation and stuff with you, the notes completed beforehand, and Also something to write on, because I'm going to mention, just talk about different things as we go through here that are just useful exegetical stuff. So if you have the information about translation procedure sheet, just a reminder, you need to be able to parse everything you translate, give the lexical form. You're to type or write out a translation of the assigned passages. And you are required to put the parsing and root for each verb or verbal form, and you should record the complete parsing for words you do not know for study purposes. You don't need to write out a translation of every single Masoretic note. Now, for this class, I actually had questions about each one just because I want you to get used to knowing how to find them. Where did I put my Ginsburg? Maybe it's over there. But you want to start getting used to knowing how to find them. And so that's important. And if there's a test, they are fair game on a test. So if you don't know what it's saying, try to find it out. It's obviously not as important as the actual inspired Word of God, but it's good. It's in there, so I want you to be, when you're looking at the Bible, I want you to know why every mark, every little thing you see on the page is there. So you actually know what you're looking at. With your lexicon, as I think we mentioned before, I don't want you to spend your whole time until your hairs all grow gray trying to find a word in BDB. So if you spend 7 minutes and you can't find a word in here, I want you to look in BDB first if you can find it. But if you can't find it in the normal BDB, there is an alphabeticalized index, which I think I show the students way in the beginning of class. And you can buy that, or you can use that if you need to, if you can't find it in BDB after 7 minutes. Pastor Roberts has one in his office. If you need a review of that, I can show it. You can't use computer software to find out the root. Don't just look at a computer. That's the 2L cheapo way to do it. If you're using BDB as your lexicon, which I suspect most people who watch this class are because it's cheaper than Kohler Baumgartner, then you would do well because it wouldn't be bad with your parsing to put the page number of where the root is. So if you're asked about, you can just turn to that page. That's not required. It's just could save you time reviewing, studying, or whatever. So if in class we're discussing it, you want to actually be able to turn to that page if I ask you about something in the lexicon. Of course, these textual and exegetical questions should be answered before class. You should do them as you go through your translation. And I could ask you other questions, of course. If there are things that are inaccurate or translation or exegesis, please correct them in a red pen. I do want you to do that. I'd rather have it corrected in a red pen than left wrong if I collected as homework. Of course, if you're auditing, it's a different situation. But if I'm collecting your homework and there's no red pen, it's wrong, and it's not corrected, that's worse than if you got it wrong and you corrected it. And also, if I'm talking about stuff and you want to write extra stuff in, great. Write extra stuff in. Just please use red pen. If you're writing extra stuff in that's not like a wrong answer getting fixed, I'm not going to mark you down because you added stuff in. I just want whatever you didn't do before class to be in red pen, so I can tell what you did and what is class, post-class stuff. So, if a student doesn't do the questions before class because there was a tornado, the dog ate his homework, and then Al-Qaeda came by and took the second copy, then the third time something else happened, then write it in a red pen in class. But obviously that's not a good situation if that happens. This is a spiritual endeavor, studying the Word, so you want the Holy Spirit to illuminate you and have wisdom and understanding the passage. And it should transform you. Our goal here is not just affecting our mind, but transforming the person into the image of Christ by the Word through the Spirit. If you look at the front of your Hebrew Old Testament here, you'll notice, and I mentioned this in the intro, right on page where it says preface to the Bomberg/Ginsburg Hebrew Old Testament, which is right before the, like some abbreviations that are given in Hebrew. It mentions there that this is the Hebrew received text you have in your hand. So that is what the King James was translated from. It is the Hebrew received text. It's not as different from the Hebrew critical text as in the New Testament, the Greek Textus Receptus versus the Greek critical text, but it's still superior. The Greek critical text is just one manuscript that they thought is really good. They found in Leningrad. It's not like recognized by the churches per se as really good. It's just, they just like this one because it's old. But this is the TR. This is a Hebrew TR, so we should expect it to be preserved by God. And he did do that, like he promised. And also, like in the Hebrew critical text, that even the divine name isn't always fully vocalized, and that's really not a good situation. And there's some other changes too, but they're not as dramatic as in the New Testament. Though now they're actually trying to come out with another Hebrew text, another critical text called the Quinta, which I think will be more different than the TR. So, but that isn't like completely the in thing yet. So this is good. Trust this one. It's right. Background to Genesis. Okay. The Hebrew title of the book of Genesis is Bereshith, the first word. The English title is probably from the Vulgate, Liber Genesis, Book of Genesis. And from the Greek title, in 2:4 the word genesis in Greek is found, which means origin, source, race, or creation. And both titles are appropriate because the book deals with both beginnings and origins. I gave you a quote in the updated version from John Gill, where he mentioned some things about the title of the book of creation. It's called the first book of Moses because there's 4 more that follow, and the rabbis called the whole thing the 5/5 of the law, from which we get the title Pentateuch. So, and of course, traditionally, both Christians and Jews have recognized that Moses wrote the Pentateuch, and I think he wrote the whole thing under inspiration. Now, after the prologue, which is 1:1 through 2:3, which is the account of the creation of the cosmos, we have 10 different sections of Genesis, each headed by Toledoth. These are the generations. Ela Toledoth is these are the generations of, and those are the divisions of the book of Genesis. And those are listed there, the generations of heaven and earth, Adam's line, Noah's sons, Shem's line, Terah's line, Ishmael's line, Isaac's, Esau's, Jacob's. You have transition to Exodus. And the books of the Pentateuch are tied together like that. And other books, often other books of the Old Testament are as well. Like a book might begin with a wow conversive, indicating it's tied into what was said before. So there is that tie together in the different books of the Old Testament. And that even relates to issues like if the New Testament quotes one part of a book, and then the next, like 2 Chronicles out of 1 Chronicles, is connected by a wow conversive, they're together. So, we're going to translate this semester 1:1 through 2:3. We're ending at 2:3 instead of right at the end of chapter 1, because that's the end of the first section. It doesn't end at the chapter division. It ends actually after 2:3. So, what's the theme here of the prologue? And this is not something you have written down. The theme teaches Israel that the God of the covenant community is the creator of the cosmos. So the creator of everything is the God of the covenant community. He's Israel's God. He makes provision. He establishes order. He establishes life systems of air, water, and land. And it's this stage where he's his created universe here on which the drama of history is going to be played out, as recorded in the rest of Genesis, salvation history of bringing the nation of Israel into existence to bless the nations, the Messiah coming, and so on. So God creates the world ex nihilo, out of nothing, and makes it an ordered, balanced, wonderful universe. And the days of creation build to a climax, and so does history. Successive epochs reaching a dramatic climax when all creatures will bow to the Messiah, the Lord Jesus. And his law, which is, of course, going to come later, is in accord with his created order. And so actually rejecting his revealed moral order is also to reject his created reality. Literary analysis of the prologue here. There are 6 days, and the key words for each day are said, separated, called, saw, and good. So those words are these key words for the different days as thoughts of God. And they emphasize his omnipotence, his omniscient presence in creation. He's the one who says, and boom, there they are. He calls things, he sees that they're good. There's typically a pattern of announcement, commandment, separation, report, naming, evaluation, chronological framework. So announcement, commandment, something's going to happen. Separation, frequently. Report, this is whatever. Names it, evaluates it as good, and this is the end of that day. So each day begins with an announcement, and God said. Okay? And that's a brief statement, but it drives the account. So there's other things here, and God said is a brief part of the account, but that actually is what drives it. So the hero of the creation here is God. This is God's will, expressed through his word. In the announcement, God said, is followed by commandment. Let there be, or some equivalent of that. So here we have his creative, powerful word making something happen. And then that brings often a separation, dividing day and night, waters and land, fish and fowl. So there are these boundaries that God sets up. And then there's the narrator, Moses says, and so God did whatever. And then there's God displays his sovereignty by naming things on the first 3 days, and he called this boom. That is an indication of dominion. God named it, shows his dominion over it. And then he evaluates it. God saw that blah, X, was good. And everything's fitting into his purpose here. And then there's an evaluation. God often blesses it, beginning with the fish and the fowl, blesses the creatures with the ability to reproduce. And then there's the framework, the different days. And there's actually, the days are divided into 2 triads. The first triad is day 1, light, conforms to day 4 with the lights. He made the sun and the moon. Day 2 with the firmament conforms to day 5 where the birds and the fish and so on are formed. So he made the place for them to live, and then day 5 he put them in there. Day 3 where he made the dry land and the vegetation is related to day 6 where the land animals and man are made. So there are these 2 triads. And so the first triad, the first 3 days, you have a separation of the earth into static spheres. He makes light, firmament, dry land, vegetation. And then the second triad, the things that are going to be in those spheres are made. So the sun, which is, from our viewpoint, is in motion. Moon, living creatures. And so you have the things that are going to rule the spheres made. The sun and moon rule over the darkness. Man rules over the earth and over the created world there. And so that's the order here. So there's also the number of creative acts increases in the triads. From the first single creative act in days 1 and 4 to one creative act with 2 aspects, days 2 and 5, and 2 separate creative acts on 3 and 6. So you have the development in the triads too. And so you have also motion growing in the second triads. First triads are static, light and dark, seas and things. Second triad, you start to have kinetic energy here. You have the moon and sun going across the sky, birds and fish moving around, land animals going around. So, and then man is created. And then the 7th day he rests. So, with a structure. So that's background to Genesis 1. Now, I gave you a note. If you go to your, open up there to Bereshith Echad, on page 1, do you see that Samek on the right margin with a segol over the top of it there?
Yep.
Yeah, so those, and I gave you the note there, those indicate the portion of the text that is read. Like if you look at 2:4, you'll see there's another one of those Sameks. Where's the next one of those somics after 2-4 in the margin? Ooh, I have a typo in here. It said 3-2 should be 322.
322.
Yeah. I said 3-2 in the note. But do you see how those somics are there?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the portions that are red. So that's, when you see the text here, I want you to know why those things are there. I need to actually, I'm going to change that in the notes I gave you guys too. I just changed my answer key.
I did find 2 other typos.
Oh, good. Yeah. If you find typos, please, you can point. I put them in red, and you can point them out to me after class because I want to fix the typos. Yeah, my writing's not infallible like Genesis is. So that somic is setu mod. This is the portion that is red. I gave you a note for that. Now, also on the bottom of the first page. Notice on the left-hand side on the bottom, it says Wayomer. Do you see that on the bottom of the page?
Yep.
And that Wayomer is the first word on the top of page 2. And then if you look at the bottom left of page 2, it says Ha-Romeseth, which is the first word of the next page. So that's what those are doing. Those words down there, that's how that works. Exegetical note on Bereshith, the first word. I mentioned there that the article, that in fact it's non-articular, doesn't mean that it has to be in beginning or in a beginning. There's some other beginning before. In temporal phrases, which this is something you wouldn't know from first year Hebrew, you don't have to have the article there. So, like I gave you the example, Isaiah 46:10, you have the absolute form of Reshith. And they are declaring the end from the beginning is the correct translation. Reshith actually never appears with the article in any of its appearance in the Old Testament. And Judaism traditionally viewed this as a creation ex nihilo. There's very good reasons to conclude that's what it is. God did create out of nothing versus out of pre-existent matter or something. And I actually gave you in the footnote there from 2 Maccabees of the Jews, where the footnote actually has the words ex nihilo in the Latin translation of 2 Maccabees 7:28. So where God made them of things that were not. He made it out of nothing. So there's the words ex nihilo. All right, Genesis 1:1. Can you translate Genesis 1:1 for me, please?
The whole verse? Or
the whole verse, and then we'll answer some of these questions. The danger here, of course, this is very familiar, so.
Yeah, actually, that's what I had a hard time. Because I didn't want to sound like, I'm just quoting King James. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth.
Wow, look at that, yeah. Yes, you are correct. Good job. Can you tell me the parsing, please, of bara?
Bara is a feminine noun.
That's good to ask. That is a verb. What would the trilateral root be for it?
Resh, Elf, Aleph, Sheen.
Sheen? We're done with the second word, bara.
Oh, we're in bara.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking Bereshith.
Oh, no. Yeah, Bereshith is a noun. Yes,
okay.
That's a feminine singular. Yes, good. Thank you. With the beth on it. Yeah, bara.
My notes are probably more extensive than they need to be. Bara, verb, third masculine singular, call perfect.
Good. And when I ask you that, if I ask you to parse it, say that, caliperfect 3ms, and also say the trilateral root and what it means. So if I say parse, this verb, the answer here would be caliperfect 3ms from bara to create.
Okay.
Which I'm sure you have that.
Yeah.
So that whole thing is the parsing. Caliperfect 3ms from bara to create. Good. Tov ma'od. No other verbs in the verse here. And relatively simple verse, but extremely profound. Have a question here. Parse Elohim. Tell me about Elohim.
Elohim is a noun, masculine, plural, In the BDB, page 43, it referred to a plural intensive.
So what's the lexical form?
Oh, lexical form?
Yeah.
I didn't write that down.
Here with Elohim, it's so common. I mean, Ale is the singular. Elohim is the plural of Ale. But Elohim, I think it has its own.
It seems to be a proper name.
Let's see. I think Elohim has its own. Yeah, Elohim has its own entry. So you could just put on Elohim as lexical form.
Okay.
Names, it is a definite title for God. Typically, a way you can identify a name is a word that cannot become plural. Like, so in other words, like, judge isn't a name because it could be judges, but Joe Bob is a name because you don't make it Joe Bob's. So Elohim, I think you could say it is definitely a title for God, but it's not like Yehovah, which doesn't become plural. You don't have Yehovahs, Jehovah's. You just have the singular.
Okay, well, the reason why I thought it was, I don't actually have the verse that I had. I thought I wrote it down, but I guess anyways, it refers to in verse 2 the Spirit of God, and then maybe it was like Genesis 6:2 or 6:3 the Spirit of Yehovah.
Oh yeah, there's tons of verses like that.
So like the obvious connection where it seemed to me to be a proper name.
I mean, it's a definite. It's the general word for the true God. It's definitely the general. It's not a name in the same sense that Jehovah is a name. So I would probably say it's a sort of the main designation title for God as God, as the one who's all powerful, the one who's created. So
is it a generic title?
Okay, so yeah, let's see. So here, let's see what you have to say about this. Elohim is plural. Does the number of Elohim agree with the verb? What is the verb to which it is subject?
It obviously doesn't agree with the verb.
What's the verb? Which verb is it the subject of?
Bara.
Bara, create. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't agree. The verb is singular. This is plural. So did Moses not know grammar well, or did they not fix it in the P document or whatever?
I'm pretty sure he knew how to write his,
Yeah,
his language.
probably if he was like in Pharaoh's court, he probably had a decent sense of how to write. Actually, it's interesting. K.A. Kitchen, in his Reliability Old Testament, he was I don't even know if he's a Christian or not, but he actually said the Pentateuch has this suzerain vassal treaty format, which was this treaty format that existed in the times of Moses, that highfalutin people, like in an Egyptian court, would have known about this treaty format. But just some Joe Bob, this wasn't very common. And also later, when theological liberalism says JEDP were all put together, this treaty format didn't exist anymore. So somehow, this book, with God as the suzerain and Israel as the vassal, somehow it looks like something that would have been known in Moses' day, this format that wasn't known way later when supposedly it was put together. So it's amazing how it just happened to work out like that, It's almost like, I think Kitchen said that even if we didn't have the theory that Moses wrote it, we would have had to postulate somebody like him having written it, somebody who had that kind of background. So it's kind of interesting. So anyway, what's going on here with this verb in the noun?
Well, in verse 26, we find that there's a plurality, let us make. So he obviously knew his grammar.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why I quoted the BDB for referring to a plural intensive. Okay. Or more specifically would be a Trinitarian concept.
Oh, Trinitarian. So is this Trinitarian? Can you prove the Trinity from Elohim?
I wouldn't make that a prominent argument, except for verse 26 gives us a good contextual reason for it.
Yeah, I think that it is. I think there's a basis for saying it's Trinitarian, but I also wouldn't make it my first line of defense either. And in the light of the testimony of the rest of Scripture, I think it's Trinitarian. But the case is stronger in Genesis 1:26. Like when you actually have the us, the pronouns, those type of pronouns being plural. You know, you can argue for a plural of majesty sort of idea with certain nouns, but with the pronouns, you don't see it. So with those pronouns in Genesis 1:26, you really can't explain them as a plural of majesty. It is an actual plural. And so I think that there is a basis. I think that based on those and other revelations of God as triune, that it's in there and in Elohim. But it wouldn't be my first place to go on its own.
We also see the Spirit and the Son
Sure.
involved with creation X. So
You do. You do. A bara. Bara is to create. It's a telic verb emphasizing the completed act of creation. So, and it's used exclusively of God. Only God in the Old Testament uses bara. People can make or form certain things, but God is the only one who creates. So, Elohim is used in 1:1 through 2:3 not because it's a different document than the Jehovah's document in 2:4 and following. That's just mythological. But it's used because it's emphasizing his transcendence and power versus his covenantal relationship to his people as much. So this is God's transcendence and power emphasized in its creation, this record here. Okay, so now we have some exciting things here. So we have these two Masoretic footnotes on Genesis 1:1. And can you read them, or at least translate them? They're a little bit hard to read because there's no vowels in there.
yeah, I actually have a hard time seeing them.
Yeah, they're small. They are small.
But I tried to, so hopefully. The first one is Hephtara, which is a section from prophets appointed to read corresponding with the reading of the law.
Good.
And that is, the next word is, I don't know, it doesn't have vowel points, so I don't know how to pronounce it right.
Yeah, when you know what the words are, then you kind of know. It's Ko, Amar, Ha'el. That's the next three words.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Ko is here. Is that right? According to BDB 462.
Well, give me the whole note. Tell me what you think the whole note says.
Amar is a verb to say. And then the next one, I believe, is in Isaiah, and then 42.
What is the word right after the Amar? What does that word mean?
But is Shia?
The Ha'el.
Ha'el, did I miss a word?
I think you did. It says Haftorah, Ko Amar Ha'el, but Yeshia, and then there's the number.
Okay, I don't have a Ha'el on my
Oh,
page.
okay.
I must have missed that one, but it would be something like the...
Yeah, Ha and then God.
Okay.
The note says, Haftorah, thus saith God, in Isaiah 42. Now, for those notes, I mean, you can use BDB, I suppose, but really what you should do is you should use Ginsburg's intro here, this one here. This is what you should use for the notes.
Yeah,
So-
I couldn't find Ko in it.
You know what? Maybe because okay, this is why. This one is a little bit tricky. But if you looked up Haftarah on page 27, I think it told you what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
It says it's the section or lesson from the prophets to be read in the synagogues, corresponding to the parashah, the reading from the law. So in other words, when they read Genesis 1:1 through 2:3, they also read Isaiah 42:5 through 43:10. And if you go to Isaiah 42:5, the first words are Ko Amar Ha'el. So the next three words are actually the first words of that section, Isaiah 42. So it says Haftarah Ko Amar Ha'el. So the Haftarah, which begins with those words from Isaiah 42:5. And so if you want to know how to pronounce them, you could look at Isaiah 42:5 and right there. And so that's what that note says. And so it says Haftarah Ko Amar Ha'el, that's Isaiah 42:5. Then it says Bayishia in Isaiah, and then that's the number 42. after that. So that one was kind of tricky. I gave you that the word meant 42 too. The next note's kind of easier. What does the next note say?
Too many.
Too many. Well, ravithi. What is ravithi? Did you look it up in here?
Yeah.
What did it say it meant?
Rav is many or more.
I think it says large, no? Rave. Let's see. Let's find it. I'll go ahead and find that on the page here. Yeah, it's on page 45. Rabbathi. Great, large, or written large. See it? You see where it is?
Yep.
I could see you could look up at the top. I think it's like the number 200 or something, but oh no, excuse me. That'd be no, it's a ration on the base. So yeah, so it's great or large. That second word. The first one. Now that first note, the half Torah notes, those are often you're going to find those where that samach is in the margin. But the vast majority of notes, except for the ones that are like that, the half Torah notes, except for those Masoretic notes, the other notes and the text critical notes put in by Ginsburg, there will be a little circle over the word that it pertains to. So, for example, in the note on verse 3, that note for verse 3, what words in verse 3, there's a little circle between two of the words that tells you what he's talking about in verse 3. What two words is the verse 3 note for?
Yahi or.
Good. There's a circle between Yahi and or. So the first note here, where's the little circle?
Over the Baith.
Good, it's over the Baith. So Baith, Revithi. Baith, written large. What do you notice about the Baith?
It's large.
It's large, yeah. So it just tells you the Baith is large.
Oh.
Yeah.
You had to say that.
They did, yeah.
He did.
It shows you how, they're careful about these things. They note that stuff. So here they noted that the Baith is large. Few notes that, just information for you. Shemayim, Eth HaShemayim Eth HaAretz, it's heaven and earth. And in the Old Testament, as well as in Egyptian, Akkadian, and Ugaritic, heaven and earth together would be the universe. So it's like the whole world. So this is an expression representing the whole cosmos. Putting those two together, he created heaven and the earth. He created everything. Okay, organized universe is what he created. Not just like the sky and the ground, and not the stars or the angels or something. Created everything. So the God of Israel is the creator of the whole universe, not just a local deity, some finite God. Now Genesis 1, that meant what it does in here, it does actually would have been helpful for Israel because it does destroy the cosmological ideas of the pagan nations in Canaan and Egypt that were there when Moses wrote the Pentateuch. And in Deuteronomy 4:15 and 19, it actually does refer back to Genesis with that. But while it does do that, and I think that Moshe would have had that, I'm sure he would have thought about that in writing it. When this was originally given, I think it's very probable that the different sections were passed down, the Bereshith sections by the people. So so that could have been written down, passed down. When this was originally written, very possibly given to Adam, there were no pagans yet. It's not like specifically written just to refute that if it was passed down, because here, this is just God probably revealing to the first people, this is how I did it. So, though it does, deal with that as well in Moses' day, when it was put together here. So, and this isn't just a summary statement for the whole creation account, though it does tell you created everything, but this is the primeval creation of heaven and earth. So the space, mass, time continuum, or the physical universe was created here. So, and Genesis, this verse does refute a lot of false philosophies, anything from atheism, pantheism. He's transcendent over what he created. He's no atheism because he created. He's no polytheism because one, God made it. No materialism, matter had a beginning. No dualism, God was alone and created. No humanism because God is the ultimate reality. No evolutionism because he created everything. So, yeah, I don't think so. And then, so God's a creator. We need to submit to, trust, and worship him because of the truth of Genesis 1:1. Any comments, questions on Genesis 1:1?
No.
Yeah, profound statement. Okay, let's go to verse 2. Did I have you read verse 1? I think
Yes,
I did.
yes.
Yeah, so read verse 2, and then you can translate.
Oh, read it in Hebrew?
Yes, please.
Okay. Wait, am I reading 1 or 2?
Read them both. Did you read verse 1 already?
I don't think I did.
Oh, you better read them both then.
Bereshith bara Elohim eth hashamayim wa eth haaretz wa haaretz hayatha tohu wa bohu
Thohu wa vohu.
thohu wa vohu wa choshek el panei tahom wa ruach Elohim marei kafeth marechefeth el panei ha-ma'im.
Okay, that wasn't bad. Good job. Try, when you're reading, make sure, pay attention to whether there's a, like with the Begad Kapats, whether it's, has a Dirish lane in it or not, whether it's spirantized or not. And then also try to say it, when you say it, with putting the accented syllable with the accent. So, like, for example, Marachefeth, because there's the accent underneath the cheth, instead of Marachefeth, something like that. Okay. But that was still pretty good. You did a good job. Haaretz hayatha, thohu vavohu, choshek al panei ha-tachom, ruach Elohim marachefeth al panei hamayim. All right, Tov mode. In verse 2, can you please parse hayatha? Haaretz hayatha.
Call perfect third persons or feminine singular of haya.
One more thing we need. What does it mean?
Come to pass, become, be.
Yeah, probably be is fine. Just be. And it can also end up meaning come to pass or become, but the fundamental meaning of haya is just be. Good. All right. And they gave you marachafeth. That's a PL participle. When I gave you those, I don't think I gave you what the form meant, though. Yeah, I just said it's a PL participle feminine singular absolute from rachaf. What does rachaf mean?
It meant shake.
Shake?
Or that was hover.
You hover?
Is that
right?
What I'm looking at?
Verified. Yeah, that rachaf. Yeah, BDB says hover. PL hover.
That was actually one of the typos was Jeremiah. You had Job.
Oh.
It was Jeremiah 23:9.
Job. It pointed out to me after. I'm not sure where you are.
Okay.
But yeah, I appreciate it. Any typos, thank you. I definitely appreciate that. Okay, I think that was good translation there. Oh, no, wait. I didn't ask you for translation, did I? I just asked you to parse the... Yeah. Yes, I got out of the translation. Okay, well, how would you translate verse 2?
Basically, it was pretty much the same. The only thing that I thought about hard was the word maracheth, and I used the word waft.
Wafted?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Because I thought about how a spirit would, instead of hovering and just fluttering, I used the word waft.
Okay. So let's hear the translation.
Okay. And the earth was unformed and empty, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God wafted over the face of the water.
Oh, okay. All right.
I actually saw my breath come out of my mouth, and I was in a cold winter, Wisconsin. And I was like, it's wafting. And I thought that would be a good definition for ruach.
Hey, now that last word, mayim, can you give me the parsing of mayim?
Mayim?
Yeah, hamayim.
It is noun, masculine, plural only. Normally it would be a dual, right?
It does look, it is a plural, yeah, and it is only plural. And you said water, and I guess I think it's fine. But since it's plural, you could equally well say waters.
Actually, I'm surprised I don't every other time I translated waters with an S.
Like BDB says only plural, mayim, waters, or water. So water is okay. But I just wanted to point out you could equally well translate it waters.
Yeah, every other time I did have it as.
So that's fine. Okay, let's answer the questions on verse 2.
Is mayim properly a dual?
I think Lambden says something about mayim somewhere. It looks like it looks like it. It's an ayim, but it's actually plural. And I think Lambden tells you that somewhere, and BDB does tell you that. In BDB, if you look it up, it says only plural. So the lexicon says it's plural.
Oh.
So it's plural. That's a good question. All right. Can you give me the parsing of the words in thohu wavohu?
Okay. They're noun masculine.
Well, let's start with the first one. So thohu.
Thohu is a masculine noun.
Okay. Singular or plural? Dual?
That would be plural, right?
It is singular.
Singular.
Actually, yeah. It's a singular, it's a masculine singular absolute noun. Thohu, and you said, what did it mean?
Thohu is formless.
Yeah, that's fine. Formless, empty.
Formlessness of primeval earth is what they said.
Okay. How about vohu?
Vohu.
Thohu wa vohu.
That would also be a noun, masculine, singular.
Good. Yeah. Oh, I didn't ask you the lexical form either. The lexical form is just tohu, and for the second one, it's bohu. I don't know if you had that written down or not, but just tohu and bohu are the lexical forms. So they're both masculine, singular, absolute nouns. Neither of them are construct. With nouns, too, you should say if they're absolute or construct, and they're both absolute.
Okay.
Okay, so without, and what does it mean, vohu again?
Vohu is emptiness.
Emptiness, so without form and empty. Okay. The wow in between them, and. Why does the wow have a comets?
Conjunction has comets because when the word itself has a disjunct accent. Disjunctive accent.
Huh, that's interesting. Why? Where did you get that from as a reason?
For some reason, I think it's Lambden, but I have BDB 251.
Oh, really? Let me see what BDB says. That's interesting. Let me take a look. So go to page 251 of BDB. That sounds kind of interesting.
But I thought I got that from Lambden, actually.
Yeah, there's a reason in Lambden, actually. There is a reason in Lambden for why it's that way. Lambden 251. Oh man, on the giant article on WoW probably, eh? Woo!
Well, it's right in the top.
Ah, I see.
251 is the short little.
Often before tone solo. Okay, it says often before a tone solo when the word itself has a disjunctive accent wa. I commend you for noticing that, but it's actually what it says right after. It says especially when it forms with the preceding word a pair, whether of parallel or opposed ideas. And actually, I didn't even think about looking in Lambden on it, or in BDB about it, but take a look in Lambden on page 33 on the rules for WoW. Oh, no, not Lambden. The annotated key. Look in here on page 33. Lambden doesn't tell you this one. But it was in one of our exercises. So notice there on page 33, it says there is one further rule about the pointing of wow which Lambden does not give, and which it unfortunately applies to this first example, which is in the exercise. It states that if two words being joined by and go closely together in a pair, such as gold and silver, day and night, and if the second word has a stress on the first syllable, then a wow is pointed wa. So that's the reason why. So here, tohu, va, wa, vohu are closely related. Vohu is stressed on the first syllable. You can see the zakef katon, the accent over the baith, the two dots, and that's why it's wow. So that's kind of interesting there. And so then I asked you what the accents are over thohu, wa, vohu. And by the way, since this is the first one and you're just getting your feet wet in there, I'm not going to ask you all these accent questions, as many as I did this time, each time. But this is a way to kind of help you learn them a little bit. So what are they? On thohu, what are the accents?
Thohu is it's esla.
Okay.
Esla.
Asla.
And peshta.
An asla and a pashta?
Yeah.
Both on the same word.
Is that right?
No, but but you're not doing too bad. A word will only have, and this is the way you learn. A word will only have one accent. So it wouldn't have two different accents, like a conjunctive and a disjunctive on the same word.
Okay.
That is a pashta. And you can tell it's a pashta and pashta is it conjunctive or disjunctive? Is it?
Disjunctive.
It's disjunctive. Is it a prepositive, impositive, or postpositive? It's postpositive. It's postpositive pashta. That's what another student had. He would always call it the postpositive pashta. To have the P's going there. You can tell that it's a pashta for several reasons. One, in Muraoka, when he's talking about the accents, on page 61, he says the accent that comes before zakef is pashta, and the next word has zakef. So that's one way to tell. The second way to tell is if you take a look, do you have the photocopy of this guy, the Muraoka? There's only a few accents that are like this where they both look the same, which can kind of be the crazy ones. But, and here, the only two options you really had are Pashtun and Asla. Let's see. Let's see, what's this one here?
Otherwise, I got this one.
I think it's this one. This one, I think. So go to page 50. So on page 61 of that one, it gives you the disjunctive accents and the precursors. You see that on page 61? Let me see here. 61. Yeah, it's for the page is a long page because it's big type. So here, it tells you how the verses divide up with the accents. And there it says these disjunctive accents have certain precursor accents. And so there it says before Zakef, so the verse divides up with Zakef there, and before Zakef it says Pashta comes. So that's one way to tell. That's probably the harder way to tell at this point for you. It may be hard period here. But on page 58, if you go back to page 58, this is the easy way to tell. On 58F, there's a paragraph that says the few accents, disjunctive or conjunctive, which are not placed on a stressed syllable are either prepositive or postpositive. So you can find that on page 58. Yeah, 58, and I think there should be a letter F on the side. Okay, 58F, there he says there's some are prepositive, some are postpositive, some are impositive. Then he says, further down, in the standard editions, which says some manuscripts repeat a prepositive or postpositive accent on the stressed syllable. In the standard editions, this does not happen except for the postpositive accent called pashta, which is repeated if the stress is milel, which means not on the last syllable. So, e.g., hamayim, the water. The accent being postpositive is written on the last letter of the word. Here the pashta has been repeated on the stressed syllable, ma. The stress position in words having a prepositive post accent other than pashta cannot be determined except through knowledge of grammar. So pashta, when it's on a word that's not stressed on the final syllable, will be repeated. It's the only one that does that. So here, the word mayim has, or thohu, has two accent syllables. So it's a postpositive pashta, which is repeated on the syllable that's actually the stressed syllable. So that was kind of tricky, which is why I asked you, actually. So it's just pashta.
So if there's two of them as pashta, if there's only one, it's...
If there's one, it could be one on the very end, postpositive, if that's a stressed syllable. This particular word is stressed not on the last syllable, so it's repeated. If you see two like this, it's going to be pashta. Okay. Has to be pashta. That was a kind of tricky one. But a good job. You didn't say some accent that didn't even look like it. Pashta and asla were the only options, and your explanation for at this point was very understandable. So good job on that. And then what is the accent on the wavohu?
Wavohu is zakef katon.
Good. Zakef katon, which is?
Disjunctive and positive.
Good. Very good. Tov ma'od. I want to ask you about Genesis 1-2, but we're out of time. But we can talk. We will, Lord willing, we will get further. I think we only have 2 lessons next class, and less. I think they're not quite as crazy as these 3 either. So we'll get, Lord willing, we'll get further in Genesis here. But let me just scratch the surface here. Why don't you tell me what does Genesis 1-2 teach us about the character of the Ruach Elohim? Let's see what you have to say, and then we'll find out whether it's good or not next time.
The Spirit is clearly a person active in creation. In light of verse 1, the plural noun with a singular verb, the context clearly is presenting a plurality of persons that work together and converse together in the creation account. Verse 26 and 27 just would logically demand co-equality. Okay, and then the rest of my notes was irrelevant to that topic.
Okay, all right.
But it had to deal with the motion of the Spirit.
Yeah, what is that? What's going on with that?
Oh, I was kind of thinking my thoughts on the paper of why I used the word waft.
Yeah. What does that mean? Why does it say that why does it say that?
What?
That he's wafting.
That sounds weird. Why does it? Because
Why did I use that word, or why does it say?
What does it mean? What does it mean, the Spirit of God? What does the clause mean? Ruach Elohim merachefeth al panei hamayim.
Well, considering the BDB said hovering, but that kind of had a position of just levitating. But the word seemed to imply more of an erratic motion, like a bird fluttering. But when I thought about how I would perceive wind, breath, or a spirit moving, I thought wafting, because fluttering seemed more vivacious than a waft.
Okay. Well, I wonder what's going on with that. Well, I guess we'll have to find out next time, Lord willing. Okay, let's read Numbers 6, 24, 26, and we will be dismissed. I know that doing Lambden homework is great, but I have to say that I think talking about Genesis is more interesting. I can't help myself. Okay, it's page 253. I'll read verses 24 and 26 through 25. Yivarakecha Yehovah v'yishmereka.
Ya'er Yehovah panaiv elecha v'huneka.
Yisa Yehovah panaiv elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. All right, you are dismissed.